So this is a new type of video. I've never done anything like this. We're going to look at two videos and I'm going to comment on it as we go along. The first video is me depressed. That's the one on your left. And the second video is me not so depressed. It's a few days later on the right. And as we do that and I comment on it, hopefully that this sheds some light on exactly what I go through. And maybe you find something you didn't realize if you're suffering through the same things that maybe will help you cope with your own situation. My goal in all of this is just to show you that you can be effective, you can be solid in what you do, even if you deal with anxiety and depression. Do you want to improve your classroom management skills? How about increasing student engagement and amplifying student success? If these are the things you're looking for, you've come to the right place. Welcome to Things That Work. I want to thank everyone who's given me such wonderful comments and input and even just watched my anxiety videos that I've started this year. It has been kind of challenging for me. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty nervous about all of this. I normally don't let people see behind that curtain, so to speak. With that said, this is a longer video than normal. So be prepared to sit down and watch if you want to. If you don't have the time to spend on a longer video, you probably should move on to something else. But what I'm going to do is something I've never done before. I'm going to look at a couple of videos. You'll notice you've got one up there on your left and on your right and down below. The one on your left is me in a depressed situation. In fact, I'd been depressed for several days when I recorded that. It's on a Monday. On the right-hand side over here, we have me when I am not so depressed. That's that following Thursday. I'd been coming out of it for a couple of days. And actually, in retrospect, I believe I'd started coming out of it on the Monday when I recorded the video on the left. So we're going to look at these two videos together so you can see the difference. The biggest difference that I noticed to begin with is the length of time that these videos take place. The one where I'm feeling better is twice as long as the one when I'm feeling very, very down and in a dark place mentally. We're going to go ahead and start. Let's take a look at this first video here, and here we go. Okay, so about 3 or 4 days ago, I started noticing I was on a down spiral, fall, emotional low, I don't know, however you want to describe those things. But I definitely was tanking, and I thought that things would get better as, just as time went on. I figured things would get better. Things were not getting better at this point. In fact, I'm lower than I've been in a long time. It's affecting friendships. So one of the things that happens is my friendships were affected this time. I vented on some people that didn't need to have to deal with what I was dealing with. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But being in tune to your feelings, that's a huge thing. Knowing when you start to go into a down cycle, recognizing in yourself those things that show that you are depressed, that you realize that maybe you're becoming depressed. Knowing those things makes dealing with it somewhat easier. Of course, I always encourage and will always encourage you to have a doctor involved. Whether it's your general practitioner or a psychiatrist, whoever, you need to have the help, medical help of someone else. So we'll talk a little bit more. Let's keep watching here. Affecting all sorts of things. It's hard to focus. Focusing, don't really care. I don't know. It's a battle. It's just a battle. That word right there sums up the entire process and cycle of depression for me. It is a battle. And of course, the anxiety and depression, they feed each other. And so I'm dealing with two different issues, anxiety and depression. One of the things that we're going to look at the second video here in a moment, and what you're going to see is that the tone of voice is not that different, and really even mannerisms are not that different. I've gotten very good over the years in masking how I feel to others outwardly. When inside I can be crumbling apart and falling apart. I sound the same
on the outside. And that's kind of something I noticed in this video. I did not realize that that was the case until I watched it. Let's start the other video, the contrast video of me not in such a depressed situation.
All right, so this video stands as a contrast to what I did Monday when I was at a really, really big time low Monday. It got a little worse throughout the day. Tuesday wasn't much better. Wednesday, I started kind of pulling out of it. Now I'm not normal, but I'm better. I'm feeling better. I'm not feeling like the world is just caving in. So this kind of serves as a contrast for that. This is kind of what I deal with. So you saw the before, and now you're seeing the current. So, like I said, I was worried about having to go on medication and all of that on Monday. It was the I was worried about having to go on medication and all that Monday, and that's a huge concern to me. And that's a real concern. It only
Medication is always a real concern to me. Honestly, here's what medication does to me, whether it's Zoloft, Celexa, whatever the brand is at that time that the doctor has decides to put me on. Uh, every prescription has taken away some or all of my creative drive. And I'll tell you, my personal identity is wrapped up heavily in creativity. And when I lose that, I lose a lot of myself. And that is scary also. And that also adds to the depression, even though the medication may be helping me get through that time. It adds to the not feeling myself, to feeling disconnected. Losing that creative edge for me is big. That's why, for me, medication is a last resort, but not something I refuse to resort to. And I think for me, being depressed and anxious, always knowing my options and knowing the order in which I will turn to those options is also a big factor in my dealing with this. Let's continue watching.
things worse to think about it, though, to be real honest. But I'm always going to keep that option open, knowing that at some point I may not lift out of that situation. It seemed like there was no lifting out Monday. I was pretty lost. It was pretty dark. I was in a very dark place, even though I didn't really come out and share all the darkness and thoughts and stuff that were going on inside my head. I don't even know if I'm capable of doing that.
You know, I don't know if I'm capable of doing it. I still don't know if I'm capable of really getting a capturing the darkness, and I don't know if anyone would even want to see how dark it really gets up in here when I'm in a full-blown depression and anxiety cycle. I do know this, that there is a lot of collateral damage that occurs anytime that I go through a cycle like this. And I know that other people I've talked to realize that they too suffer collateral damage. And by collateral damage, I mean your friends, your colleagues, the people you deal with day to day. They bear the brunt of your reactions to things that have changed, on your comments on things that you might might not make. So those are some things that to bear in mind. Whether you can actually change them in the middle of a cycle or not, that's totally individual and up to you and me. And so, but knowing that those people are having to deal with that is something that you can manage, I guess is the best word, when you are not in a full-blown cycle of depression or anxiety. Let's keep watching. We'll go to the other video now.
Putting stuff up, I'm coming to all these reasons why I don't want to put this up online. Who wants to see this? Who wants to listen to this? Who cares?
I still come up with those even now.
All those excuses are running through my head, and I'm sure that I'll sit on this until later and look at it when I'm in a better frame of mind and decide if there's anything good here or not. No tips here, nothing, just letting you see how things are sometimes. I did keep all of this.
That would be the bell for class there, ringing.
I kept all of this part of my life last year out of the daily vlogs, and so you didn't see any of this. And so this isn't new. You know, as I mentioned, I think in the first video, I've been dealing with this kind of thing as far as emotional ups and downs and unpredictable stuff since I was in my early mid 20s, and you know.
So, having this for such a long period of time, I have learned some things. I've learned some things that trigger them possibly. I've learned some, the pattern that goes on. In fact, I would encourage, if you haven't ever tried looking at the patterns possibly of your own emotions or those of friends who you know who suffer from this, there are distinct patterns many times that can be seen. And I've got a few friends who know when I'm going to be depressed, and even before I get there. And I have a few who I'm close enough with who will actually point out, hey, you're doing those things, you've got those tics, you're saying things that might make us think you're about to become depressed. Are you feeling okay? And honestly, apart from a doctor, the number two thing is having a network of people that you can trust and who know what you deal with on a daily basis. Not everyone is that trustworthy, and I address that in these videos that we're watching. And I also do eventually plan on putting together, that's something, as I'm talking about this right now, the idea of putting together a video on safe people, that actually came from the video that I made on your right, in which that I talk about making a video. I start talking about the future. One of the things I noticed about the video on your left is that I don't have a lot of future talk. It's all pretty much all about the moment. However, on the video on your right, I do talk a little bit about those things that I want to do with my YouTube channel, with the videos. And the idea of doing this right now, where I have 3 videos going at one time, that just kind of came to me a few days ago. I've been sitting on these for about a month now or so. These 2 videos were shot in October. Here we are sitting towards the end of November. And I wanted to do this right, and I hope that this format serves the purpose. Let's continue on.
Situation when I'm that down. So here I am today, doing much better. Just kind of like I said, wanted to use this to serve as a contrast so that you can see the differences between what's going on. Keep on keeping on. I mean, I still enjoy coming in every day. I still look around and go, wow, they pay me for this. It's still
great feeling.
One of those things I still have, even when, like Monday, I was so just dragging the bottom.
You can focus on those ups. They'll get you through it sometimes.
You would wonder, do I really enjoy what I'm doing? Yes, I do enjoy what I'm doing. Now I'm kind of rambling, so let's cut that off.
We'll not cut it. If you've noticed, there's no edits here.
So,
except for maybe occasional for length, but no cutting out bad stuff.
Well, that'll be a long line.
Gave me time to talk, huh?
So as you can see, things do tend to right themselves eventually. I don't know how long. I mean, these things run in cycles. I go up and down and up and down. It's a cycle. And then, I'm going to have 3 or 4.
One of the ways to keep track of those cycles is when you start to feel down, maybe put a mark on a calendar or mark on your phone calendar or something like that just simply, maybe a question mark or an X or just something, though, what it means. No one else has to know. And you can start mapping those cycles that you go through. We're going to take a look at the depressed video for a little bit.
Back at it now, and I think I see signs where I was dealing with some of the same kind of things, even when I was a teenager. So,
I have to completely agree with him.
This is just it. I'm kind of inside my head.
Inside my head.
So, anyway.
Inside my head. Now, there's a phrase that it makes so much sense, but I had never articulated that. I have a very good friend who, when we're having conversations, I'll kind of just drift and then stop. And this person will ask, hey, you're inside your head. What's going on? Well, they've used that phrase a lot, and it finally caught on to me. That person's absolutely correct. I am inside my head, and my head's doing some bad stuff sometimes, or I'm just confused. I don't feel well. This happens even in social settings. And when it happens in social settings, let me tell you, social anxiety, it occurs then, because all of a sudden I may be doing really well, swinging a conversation well and doing fantastic, hitting on all cylinders, and then it just kind of dies. And I don't have any more to say. At that point, I've got to throw the mask up, turn around, go to another group, pick up a conversation again with somebody, try to keep the energy going. If I lose the energy, then the darkness starts to take place. And in social settings, I just can't kill the conversation. I can't have it. I won't be that person. It's difficult, but I won't do it. Sometimes I will just leave early from places, and that's just the way I've learned to cope with these things. It's not running from the feelings, but trying to minimize that collateral damage that occurs. So let's keep watching.
Not healthy for me. It's not great for my students. Um, I've got to pick it up somehow. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to talk to some people, and who knows? I don't know if this is going to end up being a time when I have to go back on medication or not. I've told you I just fight that. I fight having to do that.
And I
It is
do.
not an option I will completely rule out forever, but it is definitely the last option.
Always the
for me.
last option.
So we will see. See how it goes. Sorry, not peppy, not exciting, not whatever. And
Okay, the apology thing. Apologies for things you really can't control tend to annoy people. I've learned this over the years, even though obviously, as you can see, I still do it from time to time. But apologizing for things you can't control, pay attention to that. That's one of those little habits, one of those eccentricities, one of those quirks that people have when they're down. They want to apologize for being down. They want to apologize. We just can't help it sometimes. And you have to embrace that in some way and move on. Let's watch this other for a bit.
Pretty good days. I may have a month. Um, you know, knowing what time of the year it is, I doubt it'll be a month, but I'm up for it. If I can get a month of good days from this point forward, that would be awesome. And one of the other problems is my family has to deal with all this. My
Collateral damage I was
friends
telling
deal
you
with
about.
it. In this case, one of my friends took a lot of the brunt in all of this. So, I've got to. I say I have to be careful, but when I'm in that state of mind, being careful should mean not talking to anybody. But at the same time, not talking to anybody just generally tends to lengthen the problem. So
It
it's
always
a whole
lengthens the
bunch of
problem.
situations where it's kind of like a catch-22 here and a catch-22 there. The whole
If you don't have someone to talk to, and you just bottle it up, it will always lengthen the cycle. Even if you know that there are certain months that you're further down than others, like I do. I know that October and November are bad for me. So I prepare as much as I can. I remind my friends. I do all those things proactively as those months approach, and then they hit, and here we are. So if I don't talk about it, it lasts longer, and I can tell you every time I don't talk about it, it lasts longer.
cycle itself is one of those things, like I said, when I'm in the first video, in that very first video where I talk about these cycles and how they feed themselves, I get depressed for no reason. And then I become anxious because I don't have a reason to be depressed. And then I get more depressed because I don't have a reason and I'm anxious. And those things feed themselves, like I said earlier.
I couldn't even
it's that vicious cycle
begin
that occurs. That's
to
a catch in
archit-
itself. And then the other
even
catch
now.
that I just mentioned about when I'm really low, I don't lash out necessarily, but I react differently to things. And so
I could not even begin to articulate, there we go, to articulate those thoughts on the Monday prior to that video. I just couldn't. I couldn't discuss that. I couldn't tell you that. I knew it up here, but I couldn't tell you like I am here in a clearer state of mind. And even now, looking at the fact that I couldn't, and seeing it as a third person here, literally, I guess, as you can see, seeing it as a third person now, I can tell you a lot of this I couldn't articulate, especially when sitting there as that depressed video in that state of mind that I was in. It's difficult for me to describe just how dark and bleak I feel when I get into those places. But let's keep watching.
And family kind of get in the way, and so sometimes it's best for me just not to say anything, but at the same time I need to say something. I need to express what's going on in order to move past it, and it requires a lot of understanding. I'm blessed to have the network of friends that I have that understand this, to have my wife and my kids who, whether they understand it or not, they deal with it well. My mom, she does fine with it. So all of those things all help. And I can't stress enough about building that network of people, even when all you want to do is hole away and be alone.
And that is what you want.
Chances are doing that will only cause whatever low cycle you're in to go even longer.
Like I said, always will.
Push you even deeper.
Always will push you deeper and longer.
It's crazy. Oh my gosh, I use that word. It does. It makes you feel kind of crazy. It makes you feel kind of nuts. Oh, I use that word too. Oh, stigma. But the fact is, honestly, I think we all have cycles. We all have things we deal with, and that perhaps is one of the reasons I'm slow sometimes to talk to people. But it is what helps. Talking to people is what helps. So I encourage anyone who is suffering through these types of cycles, find people you can trust, find people you can talk to. And maybe I'll do a video on safe people. And people
there we go, future talk.
Because there are, I am 100% aware there are people who are safe and there are people who are not safe. And those people who are not safe, even though they may be friends or acquaintances, they're not the people you're going to be going to tell them when you are cycling down and having difficulty. He's making it back to the upcycle. There just safe people and people who aren't safe. And sometimes we make a mistake in judgment. I think it's a great idea for a video. It's what I'm going to do next time for the next my dealings with anxiety and depression video. That's what I'm going to focus on, is finding safe people and finding people who...
Well, I don't know about the next video, but we'll do this.
Finding safe people and identifying people who may not be as safe as those that you need. I enjoy learning with you. I enjoy teaching with you. And together, we can take over the world.
All right. And we'll wrap this one up.
Kind of real. I may throw some background music in, but hey.
Nah, no background music.
Or not. I don't want to enhance any of this. I don't know. So that's it. That's where I am. That's what's going on. And don't know what else to say other than I hope your day is going better than mine right now. I enjoy learning with you. I enjoy teaching with you. And together we can take over the world.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and close this out then and tell you I enjoy learning with you. I enjoy teaching with you. And together we can take over the world.